Greetings, everybody. I am the Starving Martian, and for the next few weeks, our regular Mars Attacks reviews are going to be put on hold so that in their place we might bring you Dinosaurs Attack. This is a comic book miniseries put out initially by Eclipse Comics, later finished by the good folks at IDW. It's an interesting story to that. We'll get into it eventually, but there's a lot to cover, so we're going to kind of dive right in. But, I figured by this time next month, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom will be out in the theaters, and highly looking forward to that. And so I figured, you know what, why not celebrate by doing some Dinosaurs Attack. Now, if you don't know, Dinosaurs Attack was a trading card series put out by Topps back in 1988. I did a review of the entire series. You can find that in my playlists. Just click on the name, Starving Martian. They'll pop up. So that was 1988. 1991, Eclipse Comics, a comic book company I've never heard of outside of this, decided to make a comic book 3-part miniseries based on the trading cards. Unfortunately, it didn't sell well at all, to the point where only issue 1 was ever published. But when IDW got the rights to the comics many years later, they decided to go ahead and reprint issue 1, or at least 3/4 of issue 1, and then continue the series. The rest of issue 1 ended up as half of their issue 2, and instead of a 3-part miniseries, they bumped it up to 5. So that's more or less the production history of Dinosaurs Attack. And like I said, there's a lot of extras. We'll get into, I'll do a whole extra video after the main storyline, but I want to make sure we have time to cover everything because there is a lot to go through. So, bring her down on our table for easy viewing. Here's the cover. This is taken directly from one of the trading cards. And as I said, when we do our extras video, I will do trading card to panel comparisons because there's some pretty good takes from the trading cards in the series itself. So you see this is book 1. This is the only one that's labeled book 1, the Timescan Disaster. It's also the name of one of the trading cards. I don't know if they still called issue 1 Timescan Disaster when they did the reprints, because I do not own the reprint of issue 1. I just have the original copy. One thing I've noticed is over here on this side, you got this starry background, but there's a little bit of blood starting to ooze on the top there. And I suspect as the series went on, the Dinosaurs Attack logo would, the dinosaur biting on the bleeding earth, would slowly make its way down this page. So let's get right into it. Here's that logo I was talking about. You can see the dripping blood and Dinosaurs Attack, the graphic novel. Here's a list of the good people who worked on this comic. Now, these people, a lot of them are also responsible for the story of the original trading card series, and this was their way of being able to develop that, to work on it. You can see that same little bit of dripping blood on the top there. And most of these same people would continue with the IDW miniseries that we'll be getting to. And that was like 20 years later, so, good on them for showing up for that. So immediately we're introduced to the Prometheus, the spaceship at the center of everything. Here's a reporter by the name of Goen. He'll become an important character. We see the Prometheus has already been tested on the moon, so you can see what the moon looked like without its craters. The point of the Prometheus is it carries the Timescan device. And what the Timescan device does, it's supposed to show a window, open up a screen of what these things looked like millions of years ago. Here's Dr. Elias Thorne, the man who invented the Timescan. So we're introduced to him, and we're also introduced to Helen. She's been changed a little bit since the original card series. She's a blonde now. She used to be a brunette. She also used to be a lot more 80s-tastic. But that's okay. We'll make do with what we've got. In the comic book, it turns out that she's Elias's ex-wife. In the cards, we're not sure what their relationship is, only that he loves her, but it turns out they used to be married. They have a friendly, if competitive, working relationship. She does not approve of Timescan. So we see the ships leaving for the Prometheus. The reporter, Mr. Goen, is on board. And Helen opens up some mail she brought along. It's a card from Alice, their daughter. And yeah, that Alice is a pretty good artist. I think she has a promising future at IDW. So they dock. And Elias Thorne, never one to do anything small, has a big conference and a band and appears in person, ready to answer any questions. We're also introduced here to what was it? Ambrose, a man named Ambrose. He's Dr. Elias Thorne's friend, also his doctor, his psychiatrist. And we'll learn a lot about Dr. Thorne's personality through talking with Ambrose. So Dr. Thorne introduces the Timescan device, shows some of the things you might be able to pick up using it. This scene is brilliant because the images behind him are they're done in the same style, and they might even be pulled directly, for all I know, from old Topps trading card series from before Mars Attacks, back in the early 60s, late 50s. They had this great painting style going on, and there would be trading card series such as based on the Civil War and other moments in history, and some of those got kind of bloody and gory. They were very much pre-runners to the Mars Attack series, and so it's great to see Topps acknowledging their own history here. We also see some nice peaceful dinosaurs that we hope to get some images of using Timescan. This of course is just a demonstration, but then Helen is allowed to have her say, and she brings up some interesting points about Timescan that nobody's ever thought of before. For example, yes, it can be used for peaceful purposes, for history, but it can also be used for spying. You can find out, as she points out, where your husband actually was last Thursday night when he said he was staying late at the office, that sort of thing. So it does have great potential for good, but also great potential for the invasion of anyone's privacy. And that's an interesting take on the Timescan device. Going into the card series, we're just excited to see the dinosaurs, and we don't even consider what else Timescan might be used for. So they take a vote, and it's determined that they're going to postpone Timescan. They're not going to fire it off right now, and they're going to work out the kinks and make sure that it can't be used for anything it ought not to be. We get a bit of a flashback, and we are informed that Dr. Elias Thorne is slightly telekinetic. He has strong ESP ratings. Using some mind-enhancing electronics, not drugs, electronics, he is able to levitate small items. But the last time he did, after he unplugged, something picked up his peace trophy, of which he has several, and threw it into the ceiling. So what does this indicate? He feels like there's a presence around him, some sort of evil, foreboding presence. But there is some question whether there actually is a presence, or whether it's just his own mind playing tricks on him. We find out through a conversation with his psychiatrist that when Dr. Elias Thorne was young, his brother, the most important person in the world to him, died of some incurable disease. Elias turns his back on faith, turns his back on God, determines that there's nothing else out there, and develops something of a messiah complex. He's got to be humanity's savior if there isn't a supernatural one. And so he's gifted mankind with all sorts of inventions leading up to now, Timescan being the latest. We find him and his ex kind of hooking back up together. But he's being troubled by some nightmares, by some dreams. Meanwhile, the technician's hanging around the Timescan project, which has been put on hiatus, when suddenly it activates itself. Levers pull down, buttons get pushed with no hands around to do it. The workers panic, they try to shut it down. To give Elias Thorne credit, he does tell them, stop the main computer, we have to stop this, and they say, we tried, we can't. So he pretty much says, well, as long as it's running anyway, activate Timescan. Timescan is activated, the Earth is bathed in this radiation, meant to bring forth images of days gone by. Everybody justifiably gets upset with him. There's questions about, whether or not it activated on its own or if he had something to do with it. But there's no question about Timescan itself. It works. We open up on a window from millions of years ago, and we can see the Devonian age, which I believe is actually before most dinosaurs. But be that as it may, something goes wrong, as is always the case. An evil presence makes itself known. Dr. Elias suffers a minor heart attack and drops to the ground while hideous laughter rings aboard the spaceship. The radiation bathing the Earth is amped up to the nth degree, leading us to the Bay Ridge Bridge in Brooklyn at 10:18 a.m. For some reason that matters. It's a nice, peaceful day. Children in the park, priests giving friendly advice, lovers cooing over each other in giant heart-shaped panels. This isn't gonna last. Alright, this is why you don't drink and drive, folks. Oh, by the way, he's singing the Monster Mash. I don't know if this is supposed to be set in the 60s or if he just likes the oldie station. All I know is he's getting some of the lyrics wrong. It's not I do the mash, it's the I did the mash. Anyway, when suddenly a dinosaur looking like the 10,000-volt ghost from Scooby-Doo appears. He screams, but is unable to prevent himself from running through the materializing dinosaur. And the time scan effects, they don't work well on him. He gets time scanned into his immediate future, as does the car, and emerges as a smoking skeleton, which kind of puts a damper on the mood here for our young lovers. The priest teaches you how to cross yourself if you don't know how, so that's nice, I guess. While the dinosaur finishes materializing, and it is the toothiest, most bloodthirsty brontosaurus you have ever seen. Now, this is page 28. The comic continues from here, but in the reprint, this is where it would stop, and then issue 2 picks up on the next page. So this is where we're going to stop as well. So, what are my thoughts on the first issue of Dinosaurs Attack? Absolutely love it. I had known this existed. One of my subscribers, and forgive me if I get your name wrong, but I believe it's pronounced Burn Adept, had asked me about this. It was already on my radar, but he kind of bumped it up on the schedule of importance, so I found this in my local comic book shop. Cost me $4 and change per issue. Definitely worth the money. Hunt it down if you can. It's also available in a collected edition. Yeah, we're just getting to the good part now. We're just getting to the part where the dinosaurs actually attack. So be sure to come back next week as we look at issue number 2. But until then, keep watching the skies, everyone.